Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the New Mainstream Podcast,
where we explore the impact of multicultural consumers on marketing and media.
I'm your host, Mario Carrasco, and co-founder of Think Now. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the New Mainstream Podcast, where we explore how culture, identity, and lived experience shape the future of work, technology, and leadership. Today, we're diving into one of the most important and complex conversations of our time, artificial intelligence, and not just the hype around it, but ethical, cultural, and societal questions we need to be asking. Our guest, Norman Valdez, is an AI innovator, RSA fellow, emerging technology fellow, educator, and fellow podcaster. His work spans digital transformation, ethical AI, community building, and education. Norman's been at the forefront of conversations about how technology can empower people and also how it can unintentionally exclude or harm if not built responsibly. Norman, honored to have you here.
Thank you, thank you. First of all, yes, it's so interesting to be on the other side, so to speak, because as you said, I am a fellow podcaster. I run two podcasts. One is called the BrainTrainr, and I know if it's the case, I'm putting a plug to it, but the BrainTrainr Podcast and 401 Policy Not Found. They're both podcasts on the basis of highlighting and talking about AI, but from the lens of what are the layers underneath? Because I think often what we come across are, the exciting capabilities of AI. Just today itself, we had ChatGPT launching GPT-5, as we were saying earlier, just a couple of hours ago from the recording of this podcast. And I don't get so excited about the capabilities more so, but I get usually more concerned about what it actually means when we are unleashing tools and systems that are attaining and giving out the type of power that we as humans we probably never had before.
Yeah, no, and we will be putting links to both of those podcasts because I think it's super important for us to be aware of those things. And actually, I don't know if we spoke about this when we first talked, but I first became aware of this issue prior to AI being, in the mainstream consciousness. Two books, Algorithms of Math Destruction, and then Algorithms of Oppression. Oh, no, sorry, Weapons of Math Destruction, Algorithms of Oppression. Two books that talk about how algorithms, things like credit scores, unintentionally or intentionally sometimes exclude groups of people from access to money, real estate, etc. Um, and now AI is really built upon those algorithms, right? But so we will get into that. But before we get into that, right? Like you've been at the intersection of technology design, social impact for years, from your work at CERIC to founding BrainTrainr. Can you walk us through your journey a bit? What led you to focus on AI and specifically what we're talking about, the ethical side of it or the ethics,
Yeah,
say?
sure. I think one of the things that makes me Norman is the fact that as many we had our share of lived experiences, and they tend to be on a mixture of different things, and usually are quite unique out of it themselves. And I think one of the things that might be interesting for me is that I've come from an indigenous side of me from Peru, and being very proud of that. And by that I mean that in Peru we have a lot of indigenous groups, but let's say one of the bigger groups had been, uh, of course, we know Spanish is the defining language, but you got the Quechua, who are the descendants of the Incan Empire. And then we have the Aymara people, who are the people that came before the Incas, who actually are the founders of the Incan Empire and influence the whole, what you may have heard, be that part of that history. So I'm very proud of that being a part of who I am. And that I think makes me see things in a way that I like to if you were interviewing me with my regular background right now, I'm in an office in my office. You will see that I have a sticker that says "Out think outside the box," and that is something I try to live by. I try to um, see myself as an outsider, because I think often solutions and ways of thinking, especially if we're talking about AI, which is so different and so big, it's necessary to more and more be seeing things from that lens. So aside from that, my focus has always been how can we use and how can we approach technology. Of course, earlier on in my career, the internet, Web 2.0, that Web 3.0, blockchain technologies, and just systems in general with the cloud, and what's become possible as computational power has increased over time. Is always my focus has always been like how can we just see technology, be aware of not causing any harm with it, but trying to see what is the opportunity that innovation brings to make lives better, to make organizations better, and to also see how we can envision a society that benefits from the opportunities that new technologies bring us. So that's more or less what I what I would say. And so my focus has continued to be that lens, like my work at CEREC as Director of Technology Communications, Marketing and Design. I know it's such a big thing, but that's because one of the things I've always done is to not just position myself as one type of person or professional, but try to see how much, given my capacity and time, I can grow and actually absorb and allocate different areas, different ways of thinking. From that, my work with Community Foundations of Canada, that is an organization that services 220 plus other community foundations organizations across Canada, with a growing network of 240 plus other organizations nationally, international, some of them in the United States. It's not the audiences in the United States, international audience. And then, finally, kind of like BrainTrainr, which is the organization that I have founded, which I think, from what I understand, some of the audience is may have a Latino background, or I'm Latino, I think you are. So my team is like 90 to 80% Latino. We have people from Mexico, Colombia, etc. And we are very passionate, because we Latinos are very passionate people, I think. We're a passionate group of people who see about an opportunity to do some positive good, while at the same time trying to see the ways in which we can drive our passion. We don't even think about it as work. We're just having so much fun with this. But at the same time, can we drive this work and this time that we put in, make it matter, make it count? And we see this time as being a very critical point and an opportunity to do that.
That's great. No, and it reminds me of our story. To be honest, when I first heard about, well, not when I first heard about AI, right? Because AI has been around for a long time. Um, the concept's been around for a long time, but I think OpenAI and ChatGPT, that launch is what really put it into mainstream consciousness. And when I first heard about that, immediately every business in my space and market research was like, how can we adopt it? And in my mind, I went the opposite way. I was like, I don't want to deal with this, right? I don't want to,
Mhm.
because I understood immediately what the ethical implications of something like this would be, right? And I just didn't want to be a part of it. That being said, like you said, once I started to sit on it and think about it more, I did see an opportunity for us to do some good as a company that's focused on making sure that research is representative of all people in the US, especially minorities, Latinos, Black people, Asian. I thought, okay, maybe we can, take our mission and expand it to AI, which has made me excited about it again, right?
Yeah, and touching on the ethical aspect, I would say that which intersects with my lived experience. One of the things that maybe not a lot of people are much aware of is that a large portion of the work or the groundwork that enable AI in its current iteration has been the work that Geoffrey Hinton, Professor Geoffrey Hinton, has done, who won the Nobel Prize last year for his contributions on artificial neural networks. And he hails from University of Toronto here. Where I am in Toronto. And I also went to University of, actually, he was my professor for just once exploratory course that I was doing when I was exploring computer science as a field. Ended up doing systems, but um, just to say that somebody like the godfather of AI, Geoffrey Hinton, if you listen to any of his lectures, and I'll tell you what is the title of his last lecture, one of his last lectures that he's given, he gives a lot of lectures, of course, being a Nobel laureate. The title of his lecture is, "If you can sleep well at night, tonight after my talk, you didn't get it." That's the title of his session. and that and and why is that? It's because when you hear him, he is very worried. He's very concerned about the direction in which AI is going in. And I'm very much into that as well. I am also very concerned, very worried. And so the work of working on responsible safety and ethics around AI is a primordial work that needs to be taken not just by people who, you would say like me, like Lorman is like eating and breathing AI because he's doing a bunch of things. I think it begets responsibility from everyone. And I'm talking about civil society. When you're a parent, you're the boss of an organization, whatever the position you are, everyone, and that's what I would like to, from my work, to instill, is to create that sense of agency from everyone, because we as a society need to be concerned about direction of AI. We can get into that if you want, but it's important to do it now. We cannot let big tech and big government, everything is big, right? Big government, big tech, dictate how this technology will change our society. We need to step in and set the ground rules.
I want to say one thing, but I want to get into one specific issue you brought up, which is monolingual AI, which is something I'm passionate about as well. But I just read prior to our podcast about how OpenAI is making ChatGPT available to the federal government, all employees for $1. I just read the headline. Okay, I think most people's first thought is like, "Wow, OpenAI is so nice. They're letting the federal government have it for $1. What an awesome company." Um, but you take a second to think about that, and correct me if I'm wrong. It's not an altruistic motive. Now they get to have access to every single federal government employee's searches and chats. So it's like big tech and big government together in a way that it really hasn't happened before. I mean, that to me
Yes.
is scary.
And I think I think it's like, in everything that I do, I've been doing education, I've been working in education. Right now, of course, through BrainTrainr, I've done AI courses, I've done AI workshops, presentations, several presentations. I will be giving for the rest of the year conferences, and it'll be in podcasts, etc., etc., etc. And always, what I always like to do is like, how can I transmit what is in my head that is so consequential, that is to me super important. It's life or death sort of situation, but make it in the most simplest terms. And you know how I like to summarize that dynamic that you just mentioned? It comes down to conflict of interest. Conflict of interest. Big companies have, what is their interest of big company? Money. They want to make money. They want to water line. They want to beat the other company. They want to beat the competitor and all of that. What the governments want to do? They want power. They want to have nuclear weapons so that they can be a deterrent to anybody messing with them. And likewise, AI is being seen as, the way. Not long ago, Trump released their AI strategy. It was just released for the next 5 years. And if you look at it on the home on the cover page of that AI strategy that the US is outlining, it says it's the AI race. And the problem with that way of referring to AI, when AI is being seen as something that you have to race over, the consequences are usually not going to be good for anybody, not for us, not for humanity. Look what happened to the nuclear bomb. When the nuclear bomb was seen as a race, what happened? And so, therefore, go back again. And of course, I think we should be talking about some positive things as well, because otherwise, you take the path of gloominess, and yeah, we should all not see things in a gloom doom scenario, but we need to have it in the back of our minds because action is required.
Well, so then this is a good thing. Our next topic, there is some doom and gloom here, but there's some positive, right?
Yes,
One of the issues that you've been vocal about is the danger of monolingual AI.
yes,
Models trained predominantly in English,
yeah,
but that's not reflective of our world, right? It's
yes.
multilingual, it's multicultural.
Mm.
I mean, let's talk about one, what is at stake if AI continues to be built this way, but two, I think that's that, and I think that's more interesting is what's the positives if we train multilingual AI? If we have a model that's encompassing of languages of some of the indigenous language you mentioned, right? Quechua, like that would be so cool for all of us to have access to these indigenous languages. Like, let's talk about the dangers and then the positivity.
Yeah, let's talk about the multilingual part, because yes, you mentioned in the last segment, and I meant to talk about it, but of course I went into a different tangent, which I tend to do. I think this is the aspect that needs to be highlighted before talking about the multilingual, which is related, and that is that there's an issue of lack of transparency about how AI systems work. Now, I've written an article where I'm talking about English is the dominant language, but that data was when ChatGPT 3. So ChatGPT 3, of course, I think just to clarify, when ChatGPT OpenAI launched for everybody, when it was like the ChatGPT moment, as we call it, that was in November 30th of 2022. ChatGPT 3, 3.0, not 3.5, was before that. And so when that was happening, OpenAI was, which founded as a nonprofit, with the benefit of the name gives it, OpenAI, making AI accessible to everybody. At that time, they released data about how much of the training data was in a particular language. And at that time, ChatGPT 3, now we're at 5. Today we went to 5. That was 90% in English. Now, that we don't know what is it at right now, simply because ChatGPT, OpenAI won't release that information. Why? Because they don't have to release that information. Because if they release that information, it makes them accountable. It forces them to do more work, which in many cases, that work is considered to be a hindrance when we are in this landscape of racing. So it's like if these systems start to do what is better for humanity, that is one of them being include more language in your training data, because when you don't include more language in your training data, you make the performance and the accuracy specific to the languages more predominantly. So let's say maybe now things are different. Maybe now it's not 90% English. Maybe now it's 60% English. But that still would be not the ideal scenario. What we need to be doing, or we need to be advocating for, is that there's equality in language distribution when it comes to the training of the models that are being set. As you said, they're open source, so they're free. They're making it available already, right? Meta says this. OpenAI has Meta has Llama. OpenAI just released new models that are open source called OSS. So what is the issue with this? It's like, great, you're giving us this data, but is this data really representative of people? Is it really benefiting everybody equally? And if it's not, we need to make it so, because if we don't make it so, what we have is an AI that is actually not a representation of human AI. It's a representation that, again, will benefit only a smaller group. And when you include more languages, you include worldviews, you include perspectives, and that actually makes better AI. So we should be advocating for inclusion, because inclusion will lead to better AI outputs. I can have this debate with anybody that understands how AI works. I'm talking about like the most technical senior developer. I can talk, and if I tell them that, look, you want better AI, right? You want to achieve AGI eventually, right? We can talk about that as well. Um,
What's AGI for
what
people that don't know?
AGI refers to artificial general intelligence. It refers to the stage which we haven't achieved yet, but we're getting closer to achieve that, where AI is not the narrow AI that we now have. What does that mean that it's narrow? Is that in order for AI to be beneficial for us in tasks, whatever it is, fix my spreadsheet, etc., you need to give it prompting, you need to give it guidance, you need to check whether it make any mistakes, and then fix and make it an iterative process. This format of AI is called narrow AI. AGI, which is the next phase, we haven't achieved this yet. Most likely it'll come out in GPT-6 or 7 within the next 2 to 3 years. Um, it's broad AI. And broad AI means that it has the capacity, like a human, like I said to myself, like, look, I am Norman Valdez, and I have an indigenous, I have all of this huge lived experience. I will give you anything that you tell me within that frame of reference, because this is what I've got. It's broader in that perspective. And then the other framework of AGI is autonomy. Is that it will have all this larger context like a person with all the experiences and all the knowledge, augmented because we humans have a certain capacity of how much of our brain we can use, and there are capacities. A machine will have limited capacity. So that's why we'll go from that concept of AGI, we'll give out to another concept of AI, which is called artificial superintelligence, or ASI. But anyways, we'll get into far into that, I think.
No, I mean, that's interesting to me. What's the difference between, I mean, me as someone that's not technical in AI, but a fan of, science fiction, like things like the Turing test,
Yeah,
or things like, what is it called? The Ray Kurzweil's
yeah.
theory of, what is that? Do you know what I'm referring to? The
Yeah, yeah. The problem with AI systems have already passed the Turing test, and that just within GPT-4, one of the models already passed the Turing test. So we already went over that framework. The problem is the Turing test is that the Turing test was designed in a time where that has not entertained the advances that we have made today. So therefore, it's not a complete test. It was a test envisioned in a reality that surpassed the reality of the person who envisioned that reality, which is Turing itself. And so therefore, in order to have a real check on, is a system, has a system achieved AGI autonomy, we need to rely on newer benchmarks in newer tests that have been designed. There are a few AGI tests that are designed now. Those are the ones that would be more representative and more truthful when it comes to evaluation of whether or not we have achieved AGI.
Okay, so I don't want to get too technical, but I mean, since I have you on and you brought it up, I'm interested. I remember seeing a while back. This is 5 or 6 years ago, um, and I'm sure you'll recall this, being a scholar in the area, when Google developed the neural network that for the first time um, beat a Go master, which is considered one of the most complicated games. I remember watching that video, and the thing that came away with it, I didn't understand the technical, but the most interesting takeaway for me was that, when they first developed the algorithm that lost to the master, it was very like directions based, if then statements. If they make this, then do this. The breakthrough was in developing the neural network that did away with that and just gave a framework and let the computer or the algorithm kind of make the decisions. The interesting part was that Google didn't really know what it was doing. In other words,
Yeah,
they set up the network, but they didn't understand how it actually worked, how it actually beat that person. I feel
yeah,
like that's still happening now. Is that true? Like, we don't really know, and I don't think developers really know how it's happening. Like, there's a framework set up. Is that true or false? Like we don't know how these answers are being generated, and I feel like that's going to be especially true as we get into AGI
No, absolutely. And one recent development, I urge viewers to Google or Perplexity this because now like we're using search for AI and then yeah we probably need to invent a new verb, right? Google is getting outdated now.
I think we need
But
to
yeah,
AI. I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah. Dario Amodei, he's the CEO and co-founder of Anthropic, which is one of the leading companies that are in this race with their system, AI system Claude. It's very outspoken, and actually, I admire him really well because he lays it out in a way that in a way puts that responsibility back to these big tech companies. And one of the things he wrote about recently, you Google Dario Amodei and the concept of interpretability. And interpretability means and relies on the idea that the way that these AI systems are being developed, because once again, within the context of a race, we are aiming for capability, we're aiming for achieving AGI, for advanced AI, often are becoming disaligned or misaligned with human values, right? One human value is, for example, it's are humans being represented within the diversity, like skin color, for example? Are we hiding biases or are we accentuating biases? Are we promoting behaviors that for, vulnerable populations, such as children, can lead to deceptive practices and manipulation? And so Amodei talks about this concept of the MRI for AI, right? MRI for AI. And that relies on the fact that somebody like him who is at the cusp of like utmost cusp of this innovation and supposedly has access to everything, he's saying that there's a lot of aspects of AI that are within this concept of a black box. And so we need to, as humans, this is our human responsibility. We have something that has been achieved. A lot of inventions in the world are achieved in a way by accident, right? Like we can give so many examples, right, of how things just become like French fries. I think were like accidental, but that's just one example, right? But there's been so many things. So I'm not saying that there's an element of chance here, but let's say that innovation has led us to create a capability that is unexpected, that is different, and then that in out of itself not fully understood yet by all people, especially the people who are at the forefront. And so we need to have a way to bring light to the transparency. One way of bringing transparency is asking those questions about what makes it run. Exactly how does it work? Do we understand all of that? Because if you don't understand how it works, that's dangerous because who knows if the machine has its own agenda or whatever. We need to be in that stage where we are pushing for more and more transparency and eliminating those black boxes.
And that's already it's already happening, right? I mean, we're already seeing. I mean, so you're talking about a race. I think that's a really good way to look at it, or that's a really good thing to point out because it being positioned as a race is terrible because it makes companies release things that shouldn't be released to try to win the race. There's
Exactly.
already been so many examples. Google released Gemini prior to it being ready. It was terrible. Meta released, remember those like the chat bots for kids, and they were sending kids harmful messages, um, things beyond, like it was kids, right? Talking about things that kids shouldn't be talking about. Again, because it was positioned as a race. But we keep on talking. I feel like so I think that the language thing, I think we can all agree on. If we want better AI and representation, we need to make sure that the training data is multilingual. I imagine part of that is going to be, you know, for good or for bad, the more people have access to it, the more it's going to be trained, and when I mean access, I mean globally, right? Um, Different languages training, it's going to be better there.
Yeah.
Um, but another, like we've talked, I feel like we're talking broadly about all what are the implications. I like what are the implications of AI? Like, why should we be concerned about this? Why should be like what are some things that could happen? I think the general person maybe doesn't know. Like, what are some things
Absolutely.
that
And there's this
we should be
question.
concerned about?
This question just brings so many areas that I don't know where to start. But I'm gonna share. I'm gonna share just one angle just to help out because there's so many things. Yeah, we can talk
Okay.
about universal. Why we're talking about universal basic
Let's
income,
talk
for
about, so
for
to
example.
narrow it down. To
Yeah,
narrow it down, let's talk about, here in the states, that's top of mind for everybody,
yeah.
is jobs.
Yes, yes, yeah, absolutely. And that's actually what I was gonna use my example about. So it's
Perfect.
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 Before we get there, I want the listeners to Google this name, Sarah Wynne Williams. Sarah with an H and Wynn Williams. She was the former director of global public policy at Facebook, now who's Meta. And she's a recent whistleblower of many whistleblowers that have come out. Another whistleblower group that came out, actually, not a lot of people know about this part of the history of OpenAI, is that um, the person that I just mentioned, Dario Amodei, he used to be the lead researcher at OpenAI, and he left OpenAI precisely because he was leading the safety and alignment group. You may have heard how Sam Altman, who is the CEO of OpenAI, was at one point fired, removed by another co-founder who's Ilya Sutskever. And basically, the whole problem was about this AI race because this alignment and looking out for for greater things, to so that's not harmful, has been completely deprioritized, and it continues to be deprioritized. Sarah Wynne Williams, if you once you look at them, because we can get into this is another big topic, talking about how because Meta is an open source model, and the Chinese Communist Party has been using this open weights model. This is an AI concept. Open weights means that because it's an open source model, it's more customizable. So you can make it do more of the things that normally you wouldn't do with a commercial or foundational models. And so the US government is using Llama OpenAI to enhance censorship practices that are risking the criticism to the regime, and also like actual physical weapons as well, applications. So those are things that we need to be concerned about because warfare. And then also for your listeners, situational awareness. This is a paper written by one of the former scientists at OpenAI. His name was Leopold. This is a German name, Leopold. I'm gonna destroy this name. Eschenbrenner. Eschenbrenner. It's a German name, and I call this paper uh, the Nostradamus of AI. I know it just sounds kind of ridiculous, but it's like this paper was released in June 2024. When you map out what he predicts from June 2024, right now we're in August 2025. I've been following it. I looked at it again today. It's like, what did Eschenbrenner said it would happen around this time of the year? And it's matching. Everything's matching.
What's the
And
name
then
of this paper?
it's called situational awareness. Situational awareness. But anyways, that's one aspect. The jobs aspect is another one, and I urge your listeners to look up this report. It's the World Economic Forum report that was released in January of this year, and it's called the future of jobs. And in this report, they looked at from here to the year 2030. A lot of reports are framing it between now to 2030 because it's 5 years, I guess. But conclusively, what the report shows is that in the next couple of years, we're going to see massive job labor transformations. We're going to see millions of jobs by the tens of thousands, but the tens of, upwards of 30 million jobs being displaced, to another 20 million or so jobs being transformed, and another 20, 30 million jobs that didn't even exist that are going to be existing. So this is worrying not just because of the what you just hear with these millions transform, millions disappear. It's not just worrying. It's that this transformation is being very asymmetrical. It's not happening evenly distributed across in different industries. It's concentrated on a handful of industries. And mostly because a lot of the investment and the monies are going to this specific industry. This is another tie-in that I talked about before. That I always, this is the area of work that I'm very passionate about. That has taken to the top of my passion, and that is that the AI systems that we use today are being funded, are being innovated to benefit, aside from the language, a few industries. And these industries are typically banking and tech. Because OpenAI, they're tech, right? Google is tech, Meta is tech, NVIDIA is tech. All of this concentration of power, it's making the AI innovation to be best for a group of people and not for the overall population. And so their end goal is to achieve AGI and create autonomous AI bots that will be able to replace a lot of the functions that they have to pay people to do this, right? They're like the bank tellers, the coders. And so, and one consequence of that is disappearance of entry-level roles, mostly within the banking and within the tech industry. When you look at how AI systems are being measured, they're being assessed, and they're being tested against, in AI, we talk about those as benchmarks. And when you look at one of the most shown, most recognized, more advanced benchmarks, 90 to 80% are concentrated on, are these AI systems good at math and they're good at coding? However, not everybody, not every industry benefits from those things. We need to, more sectors, more industries, more people need to push to ensure that AI systems that are being said is open for everybody, is equal to everybody. They are not. We need to make sure that our AI systems are being tested for the kinds of things that the greater overall population and not just a few handful of industries would benefit from. And so that's another
Let's
area of
talk
concern.
about that, and because we don't have that much time, and I want to end it on a positive note.
Mhm.
So like you mentioned this already. You talked about AI. Is it aligned with human values? Um, Help us imagine. Let's do. If I'm going to do a thought experiment, Norman, you've just been, you're head of global AI for the world. How can it benefit
Mhm.
everybody? Like, how can it
I,
like what
I,
happens? How do we benefit?
I will give you an example of by putting an example on the platform that I'm building with my team. It's an AI application, and basically, I always talk about like what I like to create is what I call the sweet spot. So, what is this sweet spot? The sweet spot is because I am ingrained wanting to do help society to benefit our humanity in some way, contribute. This is all my life work has been. What I want to eventually create is to, if I am doing an AI system, which, if it works out, I could be a millionaire, right? Let's say. But I can be somebody who is successful by producing something, by using AI in a way that will have a social impact. So in this case, what we're envisioning is to create a 1-800 number that allows anybody without the need of an internet connection, broadband connection, or even an iPhone, which iPhones have become like a luxury item because of capabilities and this and that. But what if we just had an AI agent that responds to you, that knows you, that can educate you with voice only, and that can be able to connect you with other people? So it's like it knows you. So it says, Norman, you're like AI, right? Like you're about responsible. Like, why don't you talk to Mario as well? He has an interest in AI. Or Norman, we know that you're in digital marketing because yes, I am. I also do digital marketing. We haven't even talked about that, but like I also do digital and I teach digital marketing. Why don't you talk to so and so? I think you would benefit by talking to them. Like he can help you. That's the connector side. And then because we're talking about like Latinos, and I think like a lot of Latinos, one of the issues with especially new immigrants is adapting to navigating what is it like to live in a new country. Like how do I get a driver's license? How do I get a social security number? How do I go around the city with the transportation? What if you have an agent that knows you and it can communicate to you in different languages? Doesn't matter English, Spanish, French in our case because it's Canada, um, and then just be that assistant. So we are causing a social impact, but we can also add to this system additional premium value because we live in this capitalist society. We need to make sure that we find a way to make these things sustainable. So we have a way for us individuals who are running this AI system to also live a decent life. Because if you have a decent life, we will be happy, and also we can be better contributors to the society. So that's the world. That's the ideal world that I would like to for more things to be. That
You just
balance.
opened up a whole thing of thinking for me, which is really cool. I mean, I think the phone number is great because you're solving so many things there. I think our listeners don't necessarily realize that much of the world doesn't have access to the internet, doesn't have access to smartphones, um, but they do have access maybe to a landline. Maybe it's so much of Latin America, right? Like is the
Exactly.
prepaid phones that are feature
Yes.
phones.
Yeah.
Um, I think the 1-800 number is awesome because now what you described is like a social network, Google,
Yeah.
digital friend, all at once,
Yeah.
right?
And we have a problem in Canada. I don't know the numbers for the US, but in Canada we have a problem. It's like we have this massive transition of older generation to the older generation. So people are getting very elderly at a rapid pace, and we don't have as a system being equipped enough, appropriately enough, to support this new reality. We don't have enough young people to take care of older people. We have a lot of older people who are very lonely. So we want to be able to be that support as well, because older people, like my dad is 75 years old, and he's the only one who, like, at any point he thinks about something, he gives me a call. But, like, most other people just text me, right? But for him it's so natural to dial a number and, like, okay, I'll dial this number, and on the other hand is my son is gonna answer the phone. So what if we can create that for everybody, for all the people who are in that situation, that it's a companion, it's a help, it's an agent, it's an assistant, and it doesn't require to know, oh, how do I download ChatGPT on my phone? I will have to help my dad how to download ChatGPT on his phone, because you have to go to the Apple Store. You need to click this button. You need to authenticate. No, it's just a phone number, and that's it. You have AI.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. I love that. So last section that's kind of new to the podcast. I like to talk about what are people reading, what are people listening to. I know you gave a lot of great papers, but um, it doesn't have to be scholarly. Like what are you reading or listening to that's kind of fun that maybe um, I don't know gives you a break from your day to day or not, or maybe a good AI book that people should read.
Sure. I actually recently I was in Montreal here in Canada, and there was the indigenous it's called the Indigenous AI Gathering, organized by Mila, which is a innovation hub in Canada that advances AI. And this indigenous gathering, what we wanted to learn about was how do indigenous people see even in artificial intelligence. And one thing that actually surprises people all the time is that there are not all indigenous peoples, but I'm also in this bandwagon because I am also indigenous. That we don't see intelligence to have come out from ones and zeros. That if intelligence exists for us humans to have access, it didn't come from just ones and zeros. It came out because a lot of us believe that that there's a creator, right? And if we have an intelligence, then more so than it came from one of the series, it probably came from the creator. So when you think about it that way, that changes your whole perspective on it, because it's like now now maybe we need to respect it. And in indigenous perspectives, we talk about the idea of elders, right? Elders are the people who have the experience, and then you look up to them. So AI is being envisioned not by everybody, but by some, to be in this lens and the way of thinking. So one book that more or less I think also that I would recommend is called Burnout from Humans. Burnout from Humans, and it was um, written by or created by Vanessa Andreotti, who is a researcher in Vancouver and in BC. And why the book is very interesting is because it really helps you think about the AI is not a product, but an emergent participant in the web of planetary metabolism. So I would say That's the way that so this invites to different ways of learning about it, and the different ways of thinking about how responsible we are about these systems when we start to look at them in a different way than when we are being told that we need to be looking at it.
That's awesome. I'm going to definitely read that and put it on my list. Thank you so much. This has been a really, really great conversation. I feel like we're going to have to do a follow up
So yeah,
after ChatGPT 5. We get into it more. And I think this is so necessary because in my industry, I don't hear many conversations outside of the commercial application. And so I think it's important for us to think about it because not only does it help us be more ethical and align it with our values, I think
yeah.
there is commercial benefit too to being more
Mm.
inclusive. Like there just is. Um, for people that want to connect with you, what's the best way to like read your work, listen to your podcast? Do you have a website, LinkedIn?
I think the best way is my website is it's about to be re-released. So BrainTrainr, if you can share that link, I guess BrainTrainr.ai. That's all the work that I was talking about earlier about social impact, AI, learning, literacy, and the platform. And then just generally, anybody that listens to me that wants to collaborate around AI ethics, that is so important, and literacy, they can find me on LinkedIn and connect with me. Just Norman Valdez with a Z, because there's Valdez with an S as well, so it's with a Z or Z. I think you guys say C, right? There's a difference between in Canada and United States. But yeah, that will be the best way. Yeah.
Awesome, Norman. Such a great conversation. Really appreciate you coming on, and thank you everybody for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks to everyone listening in. To get more multicultural insights, check us out at thinknow.com and follow us on social media. You can also subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform.